Hi! Welcome to this part of my review featuring the Heavy Gear core rulebook. This is the first edition core rulebook of the Revitalized edition. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review featuring this classic RPG of mech battles and sci-fi drama, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we are going to talk about actions.
Take cover!
There are three standard types of actions a character can attempt in a role-playing game: automatic actions, possible actions, and impossible actions. Automatic actions will automatically succeed unless something complicates them, in which case they become possible actions. Possible actions are actions that could either fail or succeed. Impossible actions are those acts that are doomed to fail, often because they are logically impossible or just incredibly challenging. It is the game master who must decide whether an action is automatic, possible, or impossible. Automatic actions do not require skill rolls. Possible actions require an action test. Action tests consist of a modified die roll, which is compared to either a threshold value or an opponent's die roll. Obviously, impossible actions fail automatically. Let's talk about running action tests. There are 4 different ways a game master can run action tests. The first way is to tell the players what the action's threshold is and have them report their margins of success or failure. This method is the easiest, but it lends itself to role-playing instead of role-playing, that is, actually playing the role of a character, since it focuses much of the role-player's attention on dice and bookkeeping tasks. It also takes control away from the game master, since the players will expect him to abide by the die results, even if they mess up his storyline because he selected the thresholds. The second way is to only tell them what skill, attribute, or secondary trait is being tested and have them report their die totals. It is then up to the game master to compare the number to his chosen threshold and describe the results to the players. This method is a good compromise that allows the game master to have good control over the game while giving players the satisfaction of having been the ones who controlled the character's actions. The third alternative is to tell the players nothing in terms of game mechanics and have the game master perform the role behind the screen. This method is generally inconvenient for most game masters, but it is very useful for performing perception tests, such as notice or combat sense. Besides that, rolling dice every now and then while wearing a fiendish grin keeps the players on their toes. The fourth alternative is for players who prefer to dispense with dice altogether in favor of drama and plot development. The game master must simply make a judgment call, based upon the task complexity and the character's competence. No dice are ever rolled. This method is excellent for very simple and incredibly difficult situations. Advanced role players, especially those who enjoy live action, are encouraged to use this method. Let's talk about skill tests. The role-playing game, like the tactical game, relies on skill tests to determine the outcome of most characters' actions. However, in a role-playing session, the number of possible actions is virtually unlimited. The skills section of the rules lists the most common skills. These are by no means the only possible skills. They're just a list of suggested skills. If a player comes up with a reasonable new skill and the game master agrees, the new skill can be used in the game without any problem. In a skill test, the number of dice rolled is equal to the skill level of the person involved, plus any applicable modifier. For example, a skill level 2 pilot will roll 2 dice whenever he has to make a piloting roll. And what if you don't have that skill? Often, characters will need to accomplish a task in which they have no skill. In these cases, roll 2 dice. The result is equal to the lowest of the 2 individual die rolls. If either of the 2 dice rolled a 1, a fumble occurs. If no fumble occurred, add the appropriate modifiers to obtain the final total roll. If emergency dice are purchased using experience points, and we will talk about that in a future part, use the following rules. Spending 1 experience point will reduce the number of dice rolled to 1. Spending 2 experience points will keep the number of dice rolled at 2. But the roll is normal. Spending additional experience points will have no further effects. When it comes to attribute, strength, and health tests, some situations require innate instead of learned abilities. In such cases, a game master should request that a player rolls an attribute, strength, or health test. Attribute tests are fairly rare since many actions that involve an attribute are really learned abilities. Attribute tests are used when a truly broad reflection of a character's abilities is required. Strength and health tests are rolled in exactly the same manner as attribute tests. Those two types of action tests are much more common than attribute tests. Strength tests are needed for acts requiring sheer brute strength, while health tests are required to resist drugs, illness, and shock. We also have chance tests. A chance test is really just a fancy name for the dice roll required to decide the outcome of a completely random action. Simply roll one die. High results are favorable, low results are unfavorable. The game master decides upon the exact effect depending on the situation at hand. If appropriate, a 1 is still a fumble. As with all dice rolls, emergency dice can be added to improve a character's odds. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about skills. So as you can see, these tests are quite straightforward and simple, and you have different methods to carry them out. I think that as long as there is roleplay in your actions, any method will be fine. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. And remember, it is better to roleplay and fail in character than not to roleplay and fail as a player. Once again, thank you, and see you later.